returned from my business trip, my daughter-in-law had remodeled my entire house without asking me. My parents will live here with you now, Lila announced, her sweet smile never touching her cold eyes. It will be easier to keep all the useless weight under one roof. Just 1 hour later, she was panicking when the police knocked on the door looking for her. But before I explain that moment, let me take you back and tell you how an ordinary Tuesday turned into the most unforgettable day of my 64 years. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much more intense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. My name is Margaret Lane, and for years I thought I understood my daughter-in-law. I believed I knew how to keep a balance with her since the day my son Ethan married her 8 years ago. I was wrong in every way. That Tuesday started like any other. My business trip to Portland had been simple. Checking construction sites, meeting suppliers, the usual things that came with running lane construction since my husband Henry passed away 3 years earlier. Ethan managed the day-to-day projects now, but I still kept the bigger accounts and oversaw the financial side. At least that's what I thought. My flight was delayed, so I arrived home close to 10 p.m. The house Henry and I built with our own hands 30 years ago had always been my safe place. But that night, even before I opened the door, something felt different. The porch light was off, which was unusual. Lila always left it on when I traveled. I fumbled with the keys in the dark, my hands trembling slightly, and when the lock finally clicked open, I froze in the doorway. Everything looked wrong. The warm burgundy walls that Henry had painted himself were now blinding white. My grandmother's antique furniture was gone, replaced with shiny, lifeless pieces that looked like they belonged in a sterile waiting room. The shelves where our family photos once stood were empty. My heart dropped. Surprise! Lila appeared at the top of the stairs, her blonde hair styled perfectly as if she were waiting for a photo shoot. I hope you don't mind, but I updated a few things while you were gone. I put my suitcase down slowly, my voice struggling to stay calm. Where's my furniture, Lila? Oh, that old junk? I donated it. Such a relief to finally get rid of all those dusty antiques, she replied, descending the stairs with a dramatic sway in her step. She looked proud, almost like she expected applause. The house feels so much more modern now, don't you think? I glanced around in horror. My grandmother's rocking chair, Henry's favorite reading chair, the coffee table where we had played countless board games with the children, all of it was gone. You had no right, I said firmly. Actually, I did. Her smile sharpened like a knife. Ethan signed the paperwork months ago. As his wife, I have the authority to make household decisions. I felt a sting deep in my chest, but what came next nearly crushed me. Besides, she added casually, you'll need to adjust anyway, because my parents are moving in. They'll take the master bedroom. You can have the guest room. Her words struck me like a blow. Lila's parents, who had never worked a steady job and lived off handouts, were going to take the room Henry and I had built with our love. My memories, my safe place, my history, handed to strangers without my consent. I wanted to scream, but something in her eyes warned me. This wasn't a careless decision. It was calculated. She had planned every move. Where exactly do you expect everyone to sleep? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Well, obviously you'll move into the guest room, she replied, inspecting her nails as if she were bored. Mother and father need the master suite for their medical equipment. Don't worry, I already moved your belongings. Her tone made my skin crawl. This was no longer just about furniture or walls. It was about control. And yet I stayed silent, not because I accepted her cruelty, but because I already knew something she didn't. 3 weeks earlier, I had uncovered a secret about Lila that made this entire redecorating stunt seem like a child's game. 3 weeks earlier, while working late at the office, I had found small errors in our quarterly reports. At first, it seemed minor, missing funds, a few strange payments. But as I looked closer, the truth became impossible to ignore. Lila, who had access to the company as Ethan's wife and administrative coordinator, had been stealing from us. At night, by the dim light of my desk lamp, I cross-checked invoices with bank statements, my hands trembling as I saw the pattern unfold. Fake vendors, inflated supply costs, false employee bonuses, Every trick was there, clever and deliberate. By the time I pieced it all together, I realized she had stolen nearly $200,000 from Lane Construction. My first instinct had been to call Ethan right away, but I didn't. My son loved her blindly. He adored her, believed she had made him happier than anyone else ever could. Their children, my grandchildren, Emma and Noah, adored their mother. If I exposed her theft without proof, I risked tearing apart the entire family and damaging the company's reputation. So, I made what I thought was a noble choice. I confronted her privately, hoping she would confess and maybe repay the money. I thought I was protecting everyone. I thought I was preserving the family, but I had underestimated her. When I sat across from her at a diner weeks ago, gently pointing out the irregularities in the finances, she hadn't looked shocked or even guilty. Instead, she leaned forward with a chilling calm and said, "Prove it." That was the moment I realized I was up against someone far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. And now, standing in my own house stripped of every memory, ordered to move into the guest room like a tenant, I knew her plan was only getting started. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at the boxes of my belongings that Lila had shoved in without care. The room smelled different, like fresh paint and plastic instead of the lavender sachets I always kept in my dresser drawers. My clothes were folded sloppily, my jewelry tangled in a box like cheap trinkets. This was my home, my safe place, the life Henry and I built with patience and love, and now I felt like an intruder. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing, but images of Henry came flooding back. His warm laugh as he carried me across the threshold of this house, the way he painted those burgundy walls late into the night, humming off-key to keep himself awake. This house wasn't just wood and bricks. It was our story, and Lila had erased it in one weekend. The next morning, I forced myself to join them at breakfast. The kitchen felt foreign. My favorite mugs were gone, replaced by fragile china cups with thin golden rims. Lila's parents, Richard and Donna, were already seated at the table like they owned the place. Richard sat with his elbows spread wide, eating bacon as if he hadn't tasted food in days, while Donna fussed with the salt shaker. "Morning, Margaret," Donna said in a voice too sweet to be genuine. "You'll be so glad we're here. Family is everything, isn't it?" I managed a thin smile. "Yes, family is important." Lila walked in, her silk robe trailing behind her, and kissed Ethan on the cheek. My son looked tired, worn from late nights at the company. He didn't notice the way her eyes flicked toward me, sharp and measuring. "Margaret," she said brightly, "we were just discussing how convenient this arrangement is going to be. Mom loves to cook, so you won't have to tire yourself out in the kitchen anymore." I stared at her. "I enjoy cooking." "Oh, I know you think you do," she replied with a little laugh. "But you're not getting any younger, and honestly, it's a lot to handle. Besides, Mom makes the most amazing pot roast." Donna blushed like a teenager at a compliment. "Oh, stop it, Lila." I looked down at my plate. The eggs were runny, nothing like the way I made them. For a moment, I thought about saying something, but Ethan was smiling at Lila, and the children, Emma and Noah, were too busy giggling at their grandfather's silly stories. No one saw my silence, but inside I was boiling. I thought back to that day at the diner, when I had confronted Lila about the missing money. The way she leaned forward across the table, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You'll never show Ethan the proof," she whispered, her tone calm and steady, "because you love him too much. You know it would shatter him. And you care more about keeping your family together than chasing money that's already gone." I remembered how my hand had trembled on the coffee cup, how her words had pierced the air like daggers. She was right, I hadn't shown him. I had nodded, stupidly, thinking I could contain the fire. But fire doesn't stay in one place. It spreads. Back in the present, Donna reached across the table, patting my hand. "You'll love having us around. We'll keep you company. It must be so lonely rattling around in this big house by yourself." Lonely. That word stung. They had taken my master bedroom, my furniture, my privacy, and now they wanted to take away my independence too. After breakfast, I stepped into the garden to breathe. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the smell of damp earth. Henry's garden was still there, though untended. The roses we planted together were wilting, leaves crisp at the edges. I crouched down, touching the petals with my fingers, whispering softly, I won't let her take this too. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from my accountant. Margaret, I'm still seeing irregularities in last quarter's reports. Could we meet? My stomach tightened. More money missing. More threads unraveling. Lila wasn't just redecorating and moving her parents in. She was dismantling everything. Our home, our business, our family. That night, as I lay in the guest bed again, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint sound of laughter from the master bedroom. Richard's booming voice, Donna's shrill laugh, Lila's sweet tone directed only at Ethan. My son didn't see it, but I did. This wasn't about making the house more modern. It wasn't about family convenience. This was about control. She was tightening the circle around me, step by step, making me smaller, weaker, until I disappeared. And yet, she didn't know one thing. I still had proof. Folders of bank statements, copies of invoices, everything she thought I'd buried in silence. I kept them hidden, waiting for the right moment. But even then, I had no idea just how far she was willing to go. The following Sunday, I had been up since dawn preparing Emma's birthday party. She had begged me for a fairy tale theme. Princess castles, paper crowns, little wands, and a 3-layer cake with pink frosting. I had spent hours stringing decorations across the living room, carefully placing handmade banners and arranging tiny figurines on the cake. Emma had been by my side all week, her small hands busy with glitter and ribbons, her eyes glowing with excitement. This is the best party ever, Grandma, she whispered that morning, hugging me tightly. I kissed her hair and smiled. Wait until you see the cake lit up with candles. By mid-morning, I felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. But that hope didn't last. Lila swept through the front door carrying giant shopping bags, her mother Donna trailing behind with boxes of balloons. They were dressed like they were heading to a glamorous brunch, not a child's birthday. Change of plans, Lila announced, her heels clicking against the floor. We're going with a modern theme, pink and gold. So chic, so Instagram-worthy. Before I could even answer, Donna and Lila began ripping down the handmade banners I had taped carefully across the walls. Emma froze, her wand slipping from her hand. But Grandma and I made those, she said in a small voice. Lila didn't even glance at her. Sweetheart, I know Grandma tried, but these decorations are outdated. Don't worry, you'll love what we've got instead. I felt my chest tighten. Lila, this is Emma's party. She wanted a fairy tale theme. We spent days preparing. Her voice sharpened instantly, her fake sweetness replaced with steel. Margaret, she's my daughter. I think I know what she prefers. Emma's face crumpled, her little lip trembling. She looked between me and her mother, confused and hurt. But I wanted the fairies, she whispered. Lila crouched down, patting Emma's cheek. Oh, darling, you'll see. This will be much prettier. Trust me. The decorations Emma and I had poured our hearts into were shoved into trash bags, replaced with cheap, shiny balloons and generic banners that smelled like plastic. I stood there, helpless, watching my granddaughter's excitement drain from her eyes. By the time guests arrived, the house looked like it had been staged for strangers. Wow, Lila, one of the mothers gushed. You're so creative. This looks amazing. Thank you, Lila said with a gracious smile. I was up all night putting it together. I just want Emma to have the best. I stood in the kitchen, wiping frosting from my hands, unable to step forward. The cake I had baked, layer by layer with Emma at my side, was being served by Lila, who accepted praise as though she had spent hours making it. Delicious, someone said. Lila, you're such a talented baker. She smiled modestly. Well, I do what I can. Not one person looked at me. Not one word of credit was given. I was invisible in my own house. That night, after everyone left, I was still in the kitchen scraping frosting from plates when Ethan walked in. He kissed the top of my head, grinning. Great party, Mom. Lila really outdid herself. The words sliced me open. Ethan, I said carefully, trying not to sound bitter. Don't you think she should have asked me before changing all the decorations? Emma and I had planned them together. He looked puzzled, even a little annoyed. Why? It's Emma's party. Lila knows what she likes. But Emma and I... Mom, he interrupted, his tone soft but patronizing. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Lila was just trying to make everything perfect. You should be grateful she wanted to host it here at all. Grateful? That word burned in my chest. I was supposed to be grateful that my daughter-in-law allowed me to host my granddaughter's birthday in my own home. That night, lying in the guest bed once again, I stared into the dark ceiling. The laughter of the children still echoed faintly in my mind, but instead of warmth, I felt hollow. Lila wasn't just taking money. She wasn't just redecorating walls. She was erasing me one step at a time, erasing my role as grandmother, as mother, as homeowner. I thought back to the documents I had hidden, the proof of her theft, the evidence that she had siphoned nearly $200,000 from the company. My hands itched to pull them out, to show Ethan, to make him see. But the memory of his face, his trust in her, his dismissal of my concerns, stopped me cold. She had him wrapped around her finger. She had everyone convinced she was perfect. If I revealed the truth now, would he even believe me? Or would he believe her when she told him I was confused, jealous, or bitter? The next morning, as I stood at the sink washing coffee cups, Lila came up beside me. Her voice was soft, but her words were sharp. You know, Margaret, she murmured, it's important for elderly people to know their place. I think it's sweet you tried to make Emma's party special, but honestly, you should leave things like that to me. You wouldn't want to embarrass yourself again, would you? I gripped the cup so hard I thought it might shatter. You've gone too far, Lila. Her smile widened, her tone dripping with sweetness. Oh, I haven't even started. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I pulled into the driveway, arms heavy with grocery bags. I expected a quiet house, maybe Emma and Noah's laughter drifting down the hall. Instead, a large moving truck blocked the path, men carrying bulky furniture through the front door. For a moment, I thought I had the wrong house. But no, it was mine, the same porch, the same windows Henry had carefully measured and framed with his own hands. I dropped the grocery bags on the sidewalk and rushed forward. What on earth is happening here? Lila appeared in the doorway, wearing a smile that instantly made my stomach tighten. Surprise. I told you my parents were moving in. Remember? She hadn't told me. We both knew it. Behind her, Richard and Donna bustled about like they owned the place. Richard shouted at one of the movers, No, no, put the television by the window. We need a good angle for the games. Donna trailed behind with a stack of pillows, fussing about where the curtains would look best. I froze. They weren't just moving in. They were moving into my bedroom, the master suite Henry and I had shared for decades. I could hear Donna's delighted voice echoing from inside. Oh, Richard, the light from this window is perfect. We'll put the vanity here. And look, so much space for our things. Lila stepped closer, her tone syrupy sweet. Don't worry, Margaret. It's temporary, just until they get back on their feet. I glanced at the bags of groceries still sitting on the sidewalk, eggs probably cracking inside the cartons, milk warming in the sun. My hands were shaking. Back on their feet? Richard hasn't worked in years. And Donna. Now. Lila interrupted, patting my arm like I was a child. They'll contribute to household expenses, of course. I wanted to ask when or how, but the smug look in her eyes told me she already knew they wouldn't. Within days, my once quiet house transformed into something unrecognizable. Richard claimed the living room television as his personal throne, filling the house with endless sports broadcasts and loud political talk shows. Donna rearranged my kitchen cabinets, moving my pots and pans to places I could never find, replacing my sturdy dishes with flimsy ones she brought from a discount store. I tried to reclaim small pieces of normalcy. I set my grandmother's china back in its cabinet, only to find it shoved into a closet the next morning. I set out Henry's framed photo on the mantel, only to find it tucked behind a stack of Donna's magazines. The worst came when Emma's school play approached. She had been practicing for weeks, her sweet voice reciting lines from Little Red Riding Hood. You'll sit in the front row, right, Grandma? She asked, her eyes bright with hope. I saved you a seat. Of course, darling. I wouldn't miss it for the world. But the evening of the play, just 20 minutes before we were supposed to leave, Lila knocked on my bedroom door. Donna stood behind her, dressed in her finest outfit, clutching a bouquet of flowers. I'm so sorry, Margaret, Lila said, though her eyes glimmered with triumph. There's been a change of plans. Mom decided she wants to see Emma perform, which is so sweet of her. But you understand, there's only room for 3 adults in the front row, since she's Emma's grandmother. Her voice trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. I felt my chest tighten. Emma saved me a seat, I said quietly. Oh, she'll understand, Lila replied smoothly. She's mature for her age. Besides, you'll have other opportunities. I watched through my bedroom window as they drove away in Ethan's car, Donna beaming in the passenger seat. Emma would look out into the audience, searching for my face, and I wouldn't be there. But this time, I didn't stay behind. I grabbed my keys and drove myself to the school. I bought a ticket for the general section, finding a seat in the very back of the auditorium. From there, I watched Emma take the stage, her red cape swaying as she delivered her lines. Her voice was strong, her presence captivating. My heart swelled with pride and sorrow all at once. After the play, I pushed through the crowd until Emma found me. Her face lit up. Grandma, you came. She hugged me tightly, her costume still glittering under the lights. Did you see my part with the wolf? You were magnificent, I whispered, fighting back tears. The best little Red Riding Hood I've ever seen. But why were you sitting back there? I saved you a seat in the front. Before I could answer, Lila appeared, Donna close behind. There you are, Emma. Come take pictures with Grandma Donna. She came all this way just to see you perform. Emma looked confused, glancing between me and Donna. But Grandma Margaret is here too. Can she be in the pictures? Of course, Lila said with her practiced sweet smile. Maybe Grandma Margaret could take the pictures for us. And just like that, I was erased again, turned from family into photographer, capturing memories I wasn't allowed to be part of. That night, as I sat in the guest room, I realized I had crossed an invisible line inside myself. I had tolerated her lies. I had endured her humiliations. But this, stealing my place in my granddaughter's eyes, was unbearable. I whispered to Henry's photo, my voice trembling, I can't protect her anymore. Not her, not this family. She has to be stopped. The next morning, I woke up with a decision burning in my chest. Enough of silence. Enough of letting her dictate my life. I wasn't going to let Lila steal any more of who I was. But to fight her, I needed to know exactly how far she had gone. I called the office, pretending to be sick, and waited until I knew she would be at home. Then I drove straight there. My hand shook on the steering wheel as I pulled into the parking lot. The same office Henry and I had built from scratch, the same building where I had spent countless nights working beside him. Now, I was about to search it like an intruder. Inside, the corridors were quiet, the faint hum of computers the only sound. I slipped into the accounting room, locking the door behind me. The drawers groaned as I pulled them open, papers spilling onto the desk. For 2 hours, I buried myself in invoices, contracts, and statements, cross-checking everything I could. And then I found it. A file labeled Riverstone Project. On paper, it looked like a luxury renovation. Permits, materials, labor costs. But as I traced the numbers, my stomach turned. The project didn't exist. The invoices were fake, the photographs stolen from other sites. The money, almost $500,000, had been funneled into a shell company that traced back to an account under a false name. My hands trembled so badly I had to steady them on the desk. It wasn't just the theft anymore. It was something bigger, darker. She was planning something that needed a mountain of cash. I barely had time to shove the papers into a folder when footsteps echoed in the hall. My heart stopped. The office was supposed to be empty. Slowly, the steps drew closer. I hid the folder under a stack of files just as the door opened. Margaret. Lila stood in the doorway, her voice light but her eyes sharp. What a surprise. Ethan said you were sick today. I forced a smile, my pulse racing. Just a headache. I thought some quiet here might help. She stepped into the room with the confidence of someone who believed she owned it. Her eyes scanned the desk, lingering a moment too long on the files. Then she perched herself casually on the edge of Ethan's desk, tilting her head. Feeling better, I hope? Yes, thank you. I clutched my purse tightly. the hidden folder pressed against my side like a secret burning to escape. I should head home. Good idea, she said sweetly. Mother's making her famous pot roast tonight. She's so excited to cook for the family. The word family landed like a slap. Her family, not mine. My home, but her rules. As I turned to leave, her voice stopped me. What were you working on? Maybe I can finish it tomorrow. Just reconciling some vendor payments, I replied, forcing calm into my tone. Which vendors? Her question was too pointed, her smile too tight. Various ones, I answered quickly. I'll leave a note if anything needs follow-up. I made it to my car before my hands began to shake uncontrollably. She knew. Maybe not exactly what, but she sensed it, sensed that something had shifted between us. That evening, the dinner table looked like a picture from a magazine. Donna's pot roast steaming in the center, Ethan laughing at something Richard said, Emma and Noah passing roles back and forth. Lila played her role perfectly. The devoted wife, the caring mother, the helpful daughter-in-law. But every so often, her eyes flicked to me. Not with warmth, not even with annoyance. No, her gaze was cold, calculating. She was measuring me, deciding whether I was a threat worth eliminating. After dinner, as I washed dishes, she appeared beside me with a towel in hand. Let me help, she offered sweetly. We worked in silence for a moment, the clatter of plates and faint television noise filling the room. Then she spoke, her tone deceptively casual. You know, Margaret, I've been thinking about what you said a few weeks ago. About the finances. My hands froze on the dish I was scrubbing. I realize I may have been defensive, she continued smoothly. Money can be stressful, especially for someone your age. I turned to look at her. I'm perfectly capable of managing the accounts. Of course you are. Her smile widened, but her words carried poison. But Ethan's been worried. He says you've been struggling lately. Forgetting conversations, mixing things up, like with Emma's party decorations. Or when I told you about my parents moving in. My throat went dry. She was rewriting the truth, twisting it into something darker. I didn't forget, I said firmly. You never mentioned. It's okay, she interrupted softly, her voice just loud enough for Ethan, who was walking through the kitchen, to hear. Memory issues are normal at your age. Nothing to be ashamed of. Ethan paused, glancing at us with concern. Mom, if you're having trouble keeping track of things. I'm not having trouble, I snapped, more forceful than I intended. Lila placed a gentle hand on Ethan's arm. See, she gets defensive when we try to help. I read that's completely typical. Ethan looked torn, his eyes full of pity rather than belief. My heart sank. In just a few words, she had planted a seed of doubt in his mind. That night, locked inside the guest room, I spread the stolen documents across my bed. Page after page of fraud, forged signatures, false projects. I photographed every sheet with my phone, my fingers trembling. If she was planning to discredit me, to paint me as senile, then I needed evidence no one could deny. But as I worked, a chilling thought formed in my mind. Lila wasn't just trying to push me aside. She wasn't only stealing money. She was planning to take everything. 3 days later, something happened that confirmed my worst fears. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had left my reading glasses at the office, so I drove back to pick them up. The building was supposed to be empty. But as I pushed the door open, faint voices echoed from Ethan's office. One of them was unmistakably Lila's. I froze in the hallway, heart pounding. Power of attorney should be easy, given her obvious decline, she was saying. Her tone was calm, matter of fact, like she was discussing a grocery list. Ethan already noticed the memory issues. With the doctor's cooperation, we can move forward smoothly. My blood ran cold. No, the business accounts are the priority, she continued after a pause. Once I have legal authority over her finances, liquidating everything will be simple. The house will be more complicated, but if she's declared incompetent, we can force a sale for her own good. Force a sale of my house, my home, the place Henry built with his bare hands. She laughed softly. Trust me, it happens all the time. Families have to make difficult decisions for their elderly relatives. By Christmas, everything will be resolved. Margaret will be in assisted living. Ethan will have full control of the company. and I'll handle the finances. My knees nearly gave out. Assisted living. She wasn't just planning to humiliate me. She wanted me gone, legally erased, tucked away somewhere no one would hear me. Her voice dropped lower, conspiratorial. The beauty is Ethan thinks it's all his idea. He's genuinely worried about his mother. He doesn't realize every confused episode has been staged. By the time I'm finished, the doctor will sign the papers himself. I press myself against the wall, trying not to breathe too loudly. My mind raced back to the missing mugs, the rearranged kitchen, her constant corrections about conversations we never had. She wasn't just cruel. She was orchestrating a campaign to make me doubt myself, to make Ethan believe I was losing my mind. I'll need another month to establish the pattern, she added. Then we'll have that talk with the doctor. Don't worry about the money trail. By the time anyone looks closely, I'll have power of attorney. It won't even be theft. It'll be legal transfer. The sound of papers rustling, a chair scraping. My heart hammered as footsteps approached the door. Desperate, I slipped into the supply closet, shutting the door quietly just as she exited the office. Through the crack, I saw her locking up, humming softly to herself, looking like any ordinary wife running errands. Except she was plotting the destruction of my life. I stayed in that dark closet for 10 minutes after she left, my body trembling, my breath shallow. When I finally stumbled out, I wasn't the same woman who had walked in. She wasn't just stealing money. She was preparing to strip me of everything. My house, my business, even my freedom. By Christmas, I would be locked away in a facility, my assets sold, my family convinced it was all for my own good. And the most chilling part? Everyone would believe she was protecting me. When I finally drove home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat at my kitchen table staring at Henry's photograph, whispering, "She thinks I'll go quietly. She thinks I'll accept her version of the truth. But she's wrong. She has no idea who she's dealing with." The next morning, I went to the public library. My fingers shook as I typed into the computer, financial fraud laws, elder abuse statutes, power of attorney manipulation. What I read both terrified me and fueled me. She had played this game before. She knew the rules, the loopholes. But now I knew them too. And I wasn't going to let her win. On Monday morning, I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had scribbled from one of the articles, Economic Crimes Division. My voice cracked as I introduced myself, but Detective Sarah Chen's steady voice on the other end was an anchor. "Mrs. Lane," she said after listening carefully, "what you're describing is a textbook case of financial exploitation and coercion. Do you have documentation?" "Yes," I whispered, clutching the folder to my chest. "I have everything." Her tone sharpened. "I'd like to see it as soon as possible. Can you come in today?" That afternoon, I sat across from her, watching her flip through the evidence I had gathered. Her eyes darkened with each page. "This is sophisticated," she said finally, setting the papers down. "Your daughter-in-law has real skill at this. The shell company, the forged signatures, the fake project, it's not her first time." "Not her first?" My stomach lurched. "I'd bet money on it," she replied grimly. "Nobody starts with fraud this complex." I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of my chair. For months I had been playing defense, letting Lila move the pieces. But now, for the first time, I had an ally. A plan. And as I left the detective's office that day, one thought burned through me. Lila believed she was playing chess with my life, but she was about to learn what happens when you underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. By Wednesday, Detective Chen had already put together a small team. There was a financial crime specialist, an investigator who handled elder abuse cases, and even a prosecutor from the district attorney's office. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. But the biggest surprise came the next day when my doctor, Dr. Harris, called me into his office. His face was pale, his hands fidgeting nervously with his pen. "Margaret," he began softly, "I owe you an apology. A big one." I frowned, unsure where this was going. "Your daughter-in-law approached me weeks ago. She said she was worried about your memory, claimed you'd been forgetting conversations, losing track of details, struggling with your finances." His eyes flicked up to mine, full of shame. She even brought examples, very convincing ones. I felt my stomach twist. And you believed her. He dropped his gaze. I wanted to help. I thought I was doing the right thing. But now, after hearing from Detective Chen, I see how badly I misjudged the situation. She played on my biases about age and vulnerability. I should have questioned it more. I didn't. My throat tightened, anger and relief mixing together. She wanted you to declare me incompetent. Yes. His voice cracked. She asked me to evaluate your cognitive function, possibly recommend you be relieved of your financial responsibilities for your own good. Margaret, I am so sorry. I sat there, absorbing the weight of it. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't me being overly suspicious. She had actually tried to recruit my doctor into her scheme. When I left his office, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. For the first time in weeks, I stood taller. She had underestimated me, but now the cracks in her plan were beginning to show. The next morning, Detective Chen called. Her voice was firm, almost energized. We're ready to move forward. Can you be available Monday morning around 10? For what? I asked, gripping the phone tighter. To watch your daughter-in-law get arrested. A chill ran through me. Relief, fear, satisfaction. Every emotion collided at once. But before that moment could come, there was one more thing I had to do. Ethan deserved to hear the truth from me before he heard it from the police. I called him that afternoon. Can we meet for coffee? Just the two of us. No Lila, no kids. He sounded hesitant. Is something wrong, Mom? Yes, I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. And it's time you knew. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. I watched him walk in, his face tired, lines etched deeper around his eyes. He sat down across from me, concern written all over his expression. Mom, what's going on? You sounded different on the phone. I slid a folder across the table, my hands trembling. Ethan, I need you to see this. It's about Lila. His face immediately tensed. If this is about the house or my in-laws. It's not. My voice was sharp, cutting him off. It's about money. About the company. About your wife stealing from us. He blinked, stunned. That's impossible. Lila doesn't even have access to... He stopped mid-sentence. Realization dawning. She handles the administrative work. But she wouldn't. She did. I pushed the folder closer. Bank records. Forged contracts. Fake projects. She's stolen nearly $500,000. His hands shook as he opened the folder. For 20 minutes he read in silence, his eyes moving over every page, his face draining of color. Finally he whispered, "This can't be real." "I wish it wasn't," I said softly. He slammed the folder shut, his voice rising. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I thought I could protect you. Protect the children. Protect the family. I thought if I kept it quiet, maybe. Protect me." His anger boiled over. "She's been stealing from us for over a year, and you let it happen?" I met his gaze, tears stinging my eyes. "Ethan, it wasn't just theft. She's planning to have me declared incompetent. She's been gaslighting me, making you think I'm forgetful, confused, unstable. I overheard her on the phone with someone. She wants power of attorney. Once she has that, she'll take everything, my house, the business, all of it." He stared at me, his face a storm of emotions, shock, anger, pain. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of the table. "Monday morning," I said gently, "the police will arrest her. I wanted you to hear it from me first." He leaned back in his chair, his eyes glassy. "What about Emma and Noah? What do I tell them? How do I tell my children their mother is a criminal?" I reached across the table, covering his trembling hands with mine. "We'll figure it out. Together. As a family." For the first time in months, Ethan squeezed my hand back. And in that moment, I knew. No matter how much Lila had stolen, she hadn't taken everything. Not yet. The weekend crawled by with a heaviness I could almost feel in my bones. Ethan barely spoke to Lila, though he kept up appearances for the children. Emma and Noah didn't notice the silence between their parents, but I did. Ethan's eyes followed Lila differently now, no longer with admiration, but suspicion. Sunday night, after the kids went to bed, I heard muffled voices from the living room. I crept halfway down the stairs, my heart racing. "Ethan, what's wrong with you lately?" Lila demanded, her voice sharp, not even trying to soften it. You've been distant, avoiding me. Is your mother filling your head with nonsense again? Ethan's voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. I saw the records, Lila. The fake invoices. The shell company. $500,000 gone. There was a pause, then the sound of her laugh. Light, dismissive, as though he had told a silly joke. Oh, sweetheart, don't tell me you believe her. Margaret is paranoid. She's been confused for months. You know that. I told you. Her memory is slipping. She probably cobbled together random papers and convinced herself of some conspiracy. No, Ethan said firmly. These weren't random. I checked. The money's missing, and the accounts trace back to an LLC registered in a fake name. But the address belongs to your cousin. Do you think I wouldn't notice that? Silence. For the first time, I heard the cracks in her mask. You don't understand, she said finally, her tone quieter now. I was doing it for us, for the family, for the future. By stealing from my company, by lying to me, by trying to put my mother in a home. His voice rose, shaking with rage. How could you? Her words came fast, defensive. She's been holding you back. That company, your father's legacy, should have been modernized years ago. But no, everything has to stay exactly the way Margaret wants. I gave you freedom, Ethan. I gave you control. Control. He barked out a laugh. You've controlled me. You've controlled this house, my kids, my mother, everything. And I let you. His voice broke. God, I let you. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trembling in the shadows of the staircase. Then came Lila's voice, softer now, desperate. Ethan, please. Think about Emma and Noah. Do you want their mother in prison? Do you want to destroy their lives because of some numbers on a page? Ethan's voice cracked, pain flooding through every word. You already destroyed us, Lila. And I'll never forgive you for what you tried to do to Mom. I retreated quietly, tears streaming down my face. For the first time, Ethan had chosen to see me, to believe me. That was enough to carry me through the night. The next morning, Monday, the house was strangely calm. Emma and Noah were at school. Ethan had already left for work. Lila sat at the kitchen island sipping coffee, scrolling on her phone, looking perfectly composed. But I knew what was coming. At exactly 10:07 a.m., the knock came. Firm, unmistakable. Lila glanced at me, frowning. Are you expecting someone? Before I could answer, the door opened and 2 officers stepped inside, Detective Chun following close behind. Mrs. Lane, one of the officers said, his tone professional but unyielding. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted financial exploitation. For a split second, Lila's mask slipped. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, like a skilled actress, she snapped it back into place. There must be some mistake, she said calmly, standing tall. I'm sure my mother-in-law is behind this. She's been confused, making wild accusations. You can't seriously believe. Detective Chin stepped forward, her voice steady. We have documented evidence, bank records, forged contracts, and testimony from your husband. Please turn around. The color drained from Lila's face. Ethan, she whispered, her voice cracking. She turned toward the hallway as though he might appear to rescue her, but he wasn't there. When the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, she finally broke. You'll regret this, Margaret, she spat, her composure shattering. Do you hear me? You'll regret it. I stood silently, watching as they led her out the door. My heart was pounding, my knees weak, but I didn't falter. For months, she had tried to erase me. Today, the world finally saw her for who she really was. As the police car pulled away, Ethan's car turned into the driveway. He stepped out, his face pale but resolute. He walked over to me, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered, pulling me into a hug. For not seeing it sooner. For doubting you. I held him tightly, my voice trembling. It's not your fault. She fooled everyone. But it's over now. His voice broke. What about the kids? What do I tell them? I closed my eyes, holding him as tightly as I could. We'll tell them the truth, in a way they can understand. And we'll remind them that no matter what happens, they are loved. That's all that matters. The weight I had carried for so long lifted, just a little. For the first time in months, I felt air fill my lungs freely. Henry's house, my house, was safe again. But deep down, I knew the battle wasn't completely over. Lila would fight. People like her always did. Still, as I looked into Ethan's eyes, I felt stronger than I had in years. For once, I wasn't invisible. For once, I was heard. The house felt eerily quiet after Lila's arrest. For months, her voice had filled every corner, directing, criticizing, controlling. Now the silence was heavy, almost strange, but not unwelcome. That evening, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where so many painful conversations had taken place. This time, the tension was different. He looked exhausted, his hands buried in his hair. I don't even know where to start, he admitted, his voice raw. The business is in shambles, my marriage is over, and the kids, he trailed off, shaking his head. They're going to be crushed. I reached across the table, resting my hand over his. You'll start with the truth, Ethan. Children are stronger than we think. If you give them honesty and love, they'll find their way through this. Tears filled his eyes, but he nodded. I should have listened to you months ago. I let her manipulate me, pit me against you. God, Mom. She almost convinced me you were losing your mind. The words hit hard, but I didn't let bitterness creep in. That's what she wanted, Ethan. She was clever, but she underestimated one thing. Family doesn't vanish because someone tries to rewrite it. We may have been shaken, but we're still here. Later that night, Emma knocked gently on my door. She was clutching her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide and uncertain. Grandma, where's Mommy? Daddy said she had to go away for a while. My chest tightened. I pulled her into my lap, smoothing her hair. Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big mistakes. And when that happens, they have to face the consequences. Her little voice trembled. Is she coming back? I kissed the top of her head. One day, maybe. But right now, Daddy and I are here and we'll take care of you. Always. She snuggled against me, whispering, I'm glad you're here, Grandma. You always make me feel safe. Tears stung my eyes as I held her tighter. For months, Lila had tried to erase me from Emma's life, but here she was, clinging to me in her moment of fear. No matter what lies Lila had spun, love had spoken louder. The following week, Ethan and I met with Detective Chin again. She laid out the charges clearly: fraud, embezzlement, attempted exploitation. The evidence is overwhelming, she assured us. Her chances of avoiding prison are slim. Ethan exhaled heavily. What about the company? The money she took? It will take time, Detective Chin admitted. But restitution is part of the case. You'll recover some of it. Not all, but enough to rebuild. When we left the precinct, Ethan turned to me, his voice heavy with regret. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself for letting it get this far. I touched his arm gently. Forgiveness starts with yourself, Ethan. You were deceived, just like I was. The important thing is, you opened your eyes before it was too late. At home, I began reclaiming the little things Lila had stolen. I put Henry's photograph back on the mantel, polished until the glass gleamed. I brought out the lavender sachets and tucked them into drawers, filling the house with the scent I loved. I replanted the roses in the garden, whispering promises to Henry that his legacy was safe again. Donna and Richard left quietly, without so much as an apology. They packed their things while Ethan supervised, refusing to let me near them. As their car pulled away for the last time, I felt no anger, no triumph, only relief. They were shadows in a story that no longer belonged to them. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, life began to settle into something new. Ethan worked tirelessly to stabilize the company, leaning on me for guidance. Emma and Noah adjusted, their laughter returning to the house like sunlight breaking through clouds. One evening, as we sat together watching Emma do her homework, Ethan turned to me. Mom, I don't know what I would have done without you. You saved us. You saved me. I smiled softly. You don't have to thank me. That's what mothers do. We protect our children, even when they don't believe they need protecting. He nodded, eyes glistening. Still, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. In that moment, I realized something profound. Lila had tried to destroy me, my dignity, my place in this family, my very identity. But instead, she had revealed my strength. She had forced Ethan to see me again, not as a burden, not as someone fading, but as the mother who had always been there, steady and unshakable. The silence of the house no longer felt empty. It felt like peace. And as I stood by the window that night, watching the moonlight bathe Henry's garden, I whispered, "We won, my love." She tried to take everything, but in the end, she gave us back what mattered most, each other. Winter came slowly that year, the kind that wrapped the world in stillness. Snow dusted the rooftops, the garden glistened with frost, and for the first time in months, the house truly felt like home again. The chaos Lila had created was gone. In its place was a quiet that carried not emptiness, but peace. Ethan and I had worked side by side, rebuilding the company. It wasn't easy. The books were tangled, clients were nervous, and trust was fragile. But with each passing week, the cracks healed a little more. Ethan no longer looked at me with doubt in his eyes. Instead, he sought my counsel, respected my instincts, and trusted my word. That was all I had ever wanted. Emma and Noah slowly adjusted to their new reality. At first, the questions came often. When is mommy coming home? Why can't she tuck me in? But over time, they began to understand. Children have a way of carrying pain quietly until it becomes part of their story. I did my best to soften that pain, filling their days with warmth, stories, and small traditions. Emma loved baking cookies with me after school, and Noah insisted on watering the roses in the garden, even when the ground was hard with frost. One evening, while tucking Emma into bed, she asked me in her small, innocent voice, "Grandma, are you going to leave us too?" My heart ached. I cupped her face gently and whispered, "Never. I will always be here for you, no matter what." She smiled sleepily and hugged her rabbit closer, finally closing her eyes in peace. In that moment, I knew that no matter what Lila had tried to erase, my bond with these children was unbreakable. The day of Lila's trial arrived in the spring. The courtroom was cold, the air thick with tension. She stood at the defense table, no longer polished and untouchable, but smaller somehow. Her arrogance dimmed, her mask cracked. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged contracts, stolen funds, her own words recorded by Detective Chun. When the judge pronounced her guilty, there was no cheer inside me, no thrill of victory, just a quiet sense of justice. She had built her power on lies and manipulation, but in the end, truth had spoken louder. She was sentenced to years in prison, restitution ordered to repay what she had stolen. As the bailiff led her away, her eyes met mine. For a moment, I saw the fury still burning there, but behind it was something else, fear. She had believed she could erase me. Instead, she had erased herself. When it was over, Ethan turned to me in the courthouse hallway. He looked older, wiser, but also freer. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm sorry I doubted you for so long. I should have seen her for what she was." I touched his cheek the way I had when he was a boy. "Don't carry that burden. What matters is you see clearly now." We all do. Months passed, and life slowly rebuilt itself. The company regained stability, the children found laughter again, and the house, my house, stood strong, filled with the warmth of family. Every room carried echoes of Henry's love, and now, finally, it felt safe again. One summer afternoon, I sat in the garden with Ethan, watching Emma and Noah chase fireflies. The roses bloomed brightly, their scent filling the air. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his voice quiet but certain. "You know, Mom, I thought strength meant running a company, providing for my family, always being in control. But watching you, I realized true strength is something else. It's resilience. It's standing up even when people try to tear you down." I smiled, my eyes following the children's laughter in the twilight. Strength isn't about control, Ethan. It's about love. Love is what kept me fighting. Not revenge, not pride, love. That's what saved us. He nodded slowly, understanding settling deep in his eyes. As the stars came out that night, I whispered into the cool air as though Henry were listening. "We survived, my love. She tried to take everything, but she only made us stronger. And in my heart, I knew the truth. You can steal money, you can rearrange walls, you can even try to rewrite someone's story. But you cannot erase the power of love, of family, of truth. Those things endure. Moral lesson. Greed can build walls, but love breaks them down. Lies can deceive for a time, but truth always finds its way. And no matter how strong the storm, the bonds of family, when rooted in love and honesty, will outlast everything.